Hello, namaste, assalamu alaikum, welcome to Cricket for Us, and this episode is the 5th edition of the discussion and explanation of why I chose this particular team for my Pakistan all-time Test 11. Now, let's start off with the openers. Now, I really want to mention that in contention, one of the biggest contenders for this spot was Mudassir Nazar. Now, Mudassir Nazar was a batsman who was tailor-made for Test cricket. He was good in slow and low tracks. He was able to play really well in Pakistan, as well as conditions that probably wouldn't suit him as well, but he would still be able to score runs on a consistent basis. One of the biggest partnerships he's had, I believe it's one of the highest partnerships from a Pakistani perspective, is this 451-run partnership back in 1982 with Javed Miandad. And this is one of his biggest achievements, but also the fact that he was able to consistently score 50s, score 100s, but I don't know how he would have gone with a batsman like Hanif Mohammed, right? Which is also the reason why I didn't go with Majid Khan, who again was a stylish batsman. Both of these guys, Mudassir Nazar, an average of 38 in Test cricket, Majid Khan, an average of 38 in Test cricket. But none of these guys would be able to balance the defensive nature / the sometimes aggressive nature of Hanif Mohammed. The way he got stuck into a pitch as his batted and batted time, Mudassir Nazar might have been someone who could work in that landscape, but Majid Khan would have lost his wicket quite quickly. He was good in Australia, he was good in Pakistan and the West Indies, but Majid Khan in India, in England, he genuinely struggled. And if we look at the option that I really like is Saeed Anwar. Now, you could say Saeed Anwar is a perfect ODI Test opener. And he was. If I had to make an ODI 11, which I eventually will, he will be in my opening slot for the ODI 11. But as we speak right now, he had an average of around 45 in Test cricket. He batted at above a 50 strike rate on most occasions. He was able to switch gears very quickly. I think the partnership between Hanif Mohammed, someone who is classed as the Little Master, the original Little Master. His 337 is still a fantastic knock. He batted like 900 and something deliveries, okay? He batted such a long time. He is one of the OGs, as they're known, right? In terms of Asia and their opening batsmen. And he was sensational. Absolutely brilliant. To match up with someone like that, you need someone who's a little bit different, a little unorthodox, a little left-handed, and a bit more aggressive. So for that reason, I went with Saeed Anwar. But again, it's very hard to pick the 11 straight off the bat because there's so many options. People even brought up Mohammad Hafiz because of his record in Test cricket. People even brought up Shahid Afridi because of his record in Test cricket. Yes, they've got averages in the mid-30s, but they haven't played as much Test cricket and were not as consistent for a long period of time, especially in the opening slot. So for that reason, they were kind of not taken into consideration. But those four guys, any one of those four would fit in quite well. But for me personally, I think Mudassir Nazar and Majid Khan just miss out for the Saeed Anwar spot, and obviously Hanif Mohammed, the Little Master, has to get the #1 position in this batting lineup. Saeed Anwar, his opening partner. And then at number 3, you have, hold on, I'm not even going to go into number 3, number 4, number 5. I'm just going to name a few players from the middle order. Start off with Zaheer Abbas, Javed Miandad, Inzamam ul Haq, Salim Malik, Mohammad Yusuf, Yunus Khan, Misbah ul Haq, and Babar Azam. That's like 7, 8 players to fill in about 3 spots. Initially, I had this brilliant idea of considering someone like Zaheer Abbas, who was literally a game changer in Pakistan cricket. He was pretty damn good, okay? He scored centuries and double centuries. Whenever he got a chance, he would just pile on runs upon runs upon runs, and he played really well in England. He was one of those county players who came to the UK and just scored a bucket load of runs. That's why his first class record is absolutely scintillatingly awesome, okay? But we have to realize that in a team where Yunus Khan, Pakistan's highest ever Test run getter, over 10,000 runs, I think 10,099 or something, with an average of above 52 in Test cricket with multiple double hundreds, a lot of centuries, a lot of 50s, great match-winning partnerships, great partnerships to try and save the match for Pakistan, and the dynamic duo he eventually formed with Misbah-ul-Haq, the hashtag Miss You movement, right? That was so crucial to Pakistan, especially from the early 2010s to the mid 2010s until Misbah and Yunus both retired. Now there's another name that comes into contention. The guy who scored the most number of runs in a calendar year in Test cricket. He's still up there. 2006, I remember 2006, he was having an absolute smashing year, right? And he was just scoring runs upon runs upon runs. The way right, it's not even his cover drive. People talk about the way he leant into his cover drive. It was his late cut that got me, right? His late cut was one of the best late cuts I've seen from, not just by a Pakistani player, just by any player in my life. Yes, he did get caught quite a bit with the late cut too, but when it connected well, it was just the perfect shot to get off the mark or get the pressure off of him, so he could go to the other end and then come back slightly rejuvenated. So I really liked his late cut, which got him loads of runs throughout his career. Also, his batting average is like 53. On that bombshell, Misbah-ul-Haq, until he became captain, until he came back into the side, he was just a mediocre batsman, right, batting in the middle order wherever he got a chance. But when he came back, I think he scored the fastest, or one of the fastest Test hundreds ever. He was just in prime touch, especially when he was given the captaincy. I think like 2011, 2012, something like that. When he was given the captaincy, he was just a completely different player. It looked like there was this spirit inside him that was telling him to score runs, just bat out time. And this is where my Misbah-ul-Haq comparison with MS Dhoni comes back in. Again, not similar players, but the mindset was similar. That, oh, I can defend as much as I want, and I need one switch, and I can start smashing you for fours and sixes all over the place. However, consistency-wise in doing that at all times, Misbah-ul-Haq unfortunately wasn't as great as Mahendra Singh Dhoni, but he was really good. Okay, he was consistent for a Pakistani. He was that guy who I could depend on when I was like, oh, Pakistan's like 4 down. Okay, Misbah's there. So, as I said, talked about Zahir Abbas, we talked about Yunus Khan, Misbah-ul-Haq. He was one of those guys that I really liked to watch, even though he was so unorthodox. He had a few trademark shots, and that's what he would do at all times, right? Doesn't matter if he's on 49, 99, or on 1. He will still try and reverse sweep a spinner just because he wants to, right? And it did click quite a bit, I must say. And speaking of ul-Haq, let's talk about Inzamam-ul-Haq, one of the most pleasing batsmen from a Pakistani standpoint. The 3rd highest Test run scorer for Pakistan as well. Just missed out on breaking Miandad's record back when he retired. But he was an amazing batsman. I think his highest score is like 324 or 327, somewhere in the 320s, which was an amazing innings. One of the best knocks I've seen from a Pakistani batsman. He was absolutely thrilling to watch, because when you had those 3, Yunus Khan, Mohammad Yusuf, and Inzamam-ul-Haq, or prior to Yunus Khan, you had Ijaz Ahmed, Inzamam-ul-Haq, Mohammad Yusuf, then you had Moin Khan, or Rashid Latif, depending on the side you have, or you have Abdul Razak. I'm just talking about the Pakistan sides, unfortunately. But whenever I think of Inzamam-ul-Haq, rather than thinking of the player, I think about the teams that he played with. And when he retired, that was kind of like the downfall of Pakistan's Test batting, until, as I mentioned before, Yunus Khan and Misbah-ul-Haq joined forces. There was also Azhar Ali, who at number 3 has been great for a number of years, over 10 years now. But if you have Zahir Abbas, Yunus Khan in contention, Azhar Ali should be nowhere to be seen. Same with someone like Asad Shafiq, who had a sensational Test career. Both of these guys played most of their cricket outside of Pakistan, in the UAE or other countries, etc., right? So they weren't able to perform at home, which is a big bummer. But both of these guys were really, really talented. But Asad Shafiq, a genuine number 6 with an average of 38 or somewhere around there, should have been above 40 if they didn't start messing him about all over the batting lineup. But he was a fantastic number 6 as well. Maybe even in contention for someone in the middle order if his career didn't go down the path that it unfortunately eventually did. So yeah, Azhar Ali, Asad Shafiq, great batsmen of this era. Same with Babar Azam. He's just developing into a fantastic test batsman. Recently scored a 196, but they can't come into this conversation right now, right? Babar Azam, if he keeps performing the way that he is, he might just get into this team as well. But so far, Inzamam ul-Haq is finding it difficult to be in this Test 11, and he is an absolutely... Sometimes, or maybe more than sometimes, he'd get run out because he's a quick guy. He had a brilliant throwing arm. His left arm was precise as anything. Strong throw, brilliant slip fielder. I could definitely depend on Inzamam ul-Haq, but there's another batsman who was known as the man of crisis, Javed Miandad. I would depend on him just a little more. And you might be thinking, a lot of these players you're talking about, there might be clashes of egos. And we're going to get to the clash of egos after this anyway. But yes, there definitely will be. But in the nicest way possible, let's think of it as these players in their prime with the least amount of ego as potentially possible. But Javed Miandad, second highest test run getter for Pakistan. And he was just that guy. He was that guy who would come out, bat the way that he wanted, gave the bowlers exactly what they deserved at that point, right? If they attacked him, he would attack them back. He would just keep talking. He would keep talking. He was one of those batsmen who I don't know many batsmen who would just keep talking and talking and talking while they're batting with the keeper, with silly point, with short leg, even with the bowler, just for the sake of it, just to play some sort of mind games, right? And Javed Miandad for Pakistani was one of the best batsmen ever produced by the country. You could talk about Saeed Ahmed, by the way, a player who I recently found out about. And in, I think it was the mid-50s till the early 60s, Saeed Ahmed was in the top 10 best batsmen in the world in terms of rankings, right? And I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. And he was the only Pakistani batsman to creep into the top 10 rankings apart from Hanif Mohammed. So Saeed Ahmed, a definite talent, but he was also one of those guys who would be a lot more defensive than attacking and aggressive. This particular team that I'm talking about right now has a defensive batsman, and then to partner up with them is a slightly more aggressive batsman. And that's the kind of approach I've taken in the top 5, top 6, which is why you have Miandad potentially at number 4, and then Mohammad Yusuf at number 5. And Babar, hopefully he will be soon one of the greatest Pakistan's ever produced. But right now, yeah, it'll be difficult to match these three. And we keep going down. And before I continue, please do let me know your thoughts about all this, right? Because I thought about this long and hard and thought that I could use just stats. But just using stats doesn't help the Pakistan team. Just using stats will make me think that maybe Sarfaraz Ahmed or Kamran Akmal are a better number 7 as a keeper for Pakistan. But it can't be. Because Kamran Akmal, I saw Kamran Akmal's career from the start of his career to the end of his career, which should have ended a few years ago, even in domestic cricket. He's an aggressive batsman. He can save matches. He can bat at number 7. But the dude's glove work is not great, okay? Yes, he's taken some great catches. Yes, he's been good for short periods of time. But he's just dropped too many catches to be a wicketkeeper, okay? If there was just a team of like 4 wicketkeepers for Pakistan, he might be in the conversation. But I can only afford to have 1, which is why Kamran Akmal is not in the discussion. Mohammad Rizwan, though, in a few years, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he will be in contention because he is the best wicketkeeper Pakistan's had since Rashid Latif, which is like, what, 20 years? Approximately 20 odd years, right? Since Rashid Latif retired international cricket. So Mohammad Rizwan is definitely the best gloveman Pakistan's had in about 20 years. And his batting has come out a long, long way. You could talk about Sarfaraz Ahmed when he came into the Pakistan setup. It was like, oh, Pakistan finally found a keeper batsman who's aggressive but also smart, and that's what became captain. And everything was going his way, but then things started to go downhill, and his batting prowess just depreciated significantly. So yes, he was a great batsman for a short period of time, but unfortunately he wasn't able to make inroads into the batting sphere as much as someone like Mohammad Rizwan already has, right? Or the way Kamran Akmal, for lack of a better term, did. Now this is the discussion I really wanted to have, which was, do you choose the better keeper or you choose the better keeper batsman? Now for a Pakistani, if I've got potentially, I'm only going to use one genuine all-rounder. You could talk about Abdul Razak, you could talk about Azhar Mahmood, you could talk about Wasim Akram being an all-rounder, but in this side he's a bowling all-rounder if I had to pick it, right? So he is in the side, obviously. And Imran Khan. is the only genuine all-rounder I could have in this Pakistan lineup, who will eventually, yes, also be the Pakistani captain, because he was a born leader. He was the prime minister till a couple of weeks ago of the country, so he was very, very good batsman, a very dangerous bowler. Some of his deliveries were all sensational, right? And the way he just come out with that white helmet, and like, yeah, I'm just gonna bat, and bat. And when he got injured, when he couldn't bowl much in the 80s, right? He just became a genuine batsman. There's not many all-rounders in the world, especially pace bowling all-rounders, with batting averages above 35 and bowling averages 30 or under 30. Imran Khan was one of those, okay? And it's unfortunate that he only got like 300 odd wickets, but he was just out of this world. And Pakistan have not found his replacement since he retired. They've had like glimpses of players, but yeah, he was absolutely gold, okay? So yeah, obviously Imran Khan's in the side. But yeah, in terms of keepers, if I had the luxury of playing 6 genuine batsmen, which means I would have put in Zaheer Abbas or Inzamam ul Haq into the side as well, then I would have gone genuine keeper in Wasim Bari. Because he was, according to Imran Khan as well, the best wicketkeeper he's seen since Alan Knott, who arguably is the best wicketkeeper ever. But that's what I've read, that's what I've heard, that's what I've known for a very long time. But that's what I know. And Wasim Bari, as a batsman, was not great. He was a genuine number 9 wicketkeeper. And that's what he was for Pakistan, sometimes number 8, but mostly number 9. So if I was to go down the route of Pakistan only having 4 bowlers, then I would play Wasim Bari. But in this instance, I need someone who was a fantastic gloveman, but also could save matches, could come bat in the lower order with the tail as well on a consistent basis, and be able to manage the situation fairly well. So only 2 names kind of pop up in this instance. It's Rashid Latif and Moin Khan. Both played around the same time. And this is where the egos come in, because there was a huge disagreement about who to pick in the Pakistani camp. And most of the games were given to Moin Khan. Not all of them. And people might disagree with me and call me a Rashid Latif purist and whatever. But I've tried to do as much research as I possibly can. And it's probably not their fault. It's just the political situation inside the locker room and stuff. Moin Khan was preferred. Because Moin Khan was preferred, he played more games. He got more chances to do what he possibly needed to do. Come down the order, bat with the tail, be consistent as much as possible. And then Rashid Latif, I think Rashid Latif played half the games that Moin Khan played. I believe so. I'm pretty sure Rashid Latif pretty much played half the test matches that Moin Khan played, but took around about the same number of catches and only like 10 less stumpings, which to me tells me how maybe the bowling was not as good or the batsmen were difficult. You could take that into consideration, but looking at purely the keeping stats, Rashid Latif was far superior. In terms of the batting side of things, Moin Khan's batting average was around 30, Rashid Latif's batting average was around 27, 28. Both of them batted mostly with the tail, sometimes with top order or the middle order as well. Moin Khan obviously got more chances, therefore his centuries and half centuries are a lot more. But even though Rashid Latif was an unorthodox batsman, so was Moin Khan, but Rashid Latif was just able to hit shots in places where you won't expect him to. Similarly, Moin Khan could do the same, but he was a bit more, he looked a bit more technically sound, but at the same time got out in similar ways almost every time. Yes, he had a fantastic sweep, so did Rashid Latif, but Moin Khan was one of those guys who was much better in ODI cricket than he was in Test cricket as a keeper batsman. And the stats, I'd say he wasn't, and his average was like in the 20s, but at the time, that is exactly what Pakistan needed. But for me, if I had to pick, like I said, in my actual team, Rashid Latif does get the nod from me due to his keeping skills and him being pretty much the same batsman as Moin Khan. Now, if we talk about bowlers, before we talk about Wasim Akram, etc., Fazal Mahmood, the legendary, the first icon, the first legend of Pakistan cricket, he was the guy who put Pakistan as a cricket team on the map, right? I think it was New Zealand. Pakistan beat New Zealand. No, Pakistan beat England at the Oval. Pakistan beat England at the Oval in 52 or 54, something like that. And he took like 10 wickets or 12 wickets, something like that. So yeah, Fazal Mahmood was the first genuine legend of Pakistan cricket. Brilliant bowler, could swing the ball both ways, and was just very, very of the times. He wasn't super quick, but he was line and length heavy, very, very important cog of the wheel. But I can't put him on the side. I can't put him on the side. If I've got Wasim and Okar, right? Okay, it's very difficult to try and even consider putting him into the side. So yeah, I just thought I must mention Fazal Mahmood, an absolute legend of Pakistan cricket. Another legend of Pakistan cricket, the guy who basically taught Imran Khan how to bowl reverse swing, was Sarfaraz Nawaz, who, again, not the quickest of bowlers, but he reversed the ball and got batsmen jumping around, getting confused, getting bamboozled on a regular basis. But you can't go away from Wasim and Okar. Wasim Akram, 414 test wickets. Okar Yunus, 300 and something test wickets, because he was taken out of the side due to politics and arguments, right, within the team for 2.5 years. Yes, there was an injury as well, but he wasn't brought back into the side until a lot later, which is why I only found out about Okar Yunus in 1999. Even though I saw the 96 World Cup, I just didn't remember it, because he was gone for the side for like 2 years or something. So yeah, Okar Yunus, absolute toe-crushing Yorkers every single time. He reversed the ball, he swung the ball away, swung the ball in, had a killer bouncer, bowled like at least 95 miles an hour, and then obviously he slowed down as well, but he was bowling absolute bolts. And at the same time, you had Wasim Akram at the other end, bowling around 90 miles an hour in his early career, and then slowly, as he developed into an older gentleman, he just pulled his pace back and just talked with the ball. Same with Glenn McGrath, same with Okar Yunus at the end, right? He swung the ball all the ways, used his left arm angle, right? His shoulder was one of his biggest assets because it was quick arm action. So you'd expect him to be bowling like 70, 75, but he was bowling at like 85, 88 miles an hour when you wouldn't expect it. Especially in his early career, he would be able to swing the ball a lot and seam the ball as well. He had a lot of talent. So Wasim Akram, Okar Yunus, both sensational, both obviously make the side. And I just want to give a very quick mention to Shoaib Akhtar, who didn't play that many test matches because of injuries and stuff, but his record in test cricket was pretty darn good. I talked about Shane Bourne in the previous video. Just injuries made him unavailable for test cricket for a longer period of time. But the little he played, he was really good. Yes, he got hit for runs sometimes, but his strike rate, very impressive. His average, very impressive. His speeds, very impressive. And the ability to pick up wickets almost in any conditions because of the pace he was bowling at, extremely impressive. And as I've mentioned on multiple occasions, one of my favorite players of all time. But he does not make the best Pakistan test team of all time. Right, so we need to come to the spinners now. And Abdul Qadir. If you don't know Abdul Qadir, Google Abdul Qadir, because this guy was the guy who could leg spin, googly, flipper, had an equivalent of not a zooter that Shane Warne had, but he had a streeter one, for lack of a better term, right? Abdul Qadir had every trick in the book. And according to the great late Shane Warne, he learned a lot of the leg spin art from Abdul Qadir. Not all of it, obviously, but a good chunk from Abdul Qadir, from watching Abdul Qadir bowl. And he was an absolute legend. Not just of Pakistan cricket, but from a leg spinning standpoint, one of the best leg spinners ever produced. And Pakistan was very grateful to have someone like that. You talk about Mushtaq Ahmed, but Mushtaq Ahmed's records in test cricket, he wasn't much of a, like, I wouldn't put him as one of the best test cricketers for Pakistan, but Abdul Qadir definitely up there as probably the best spinner Pakistan's ever produced. And you can probably even put Danish Kanaria and Yasir Shah in a conversation there. But Yasir Shah had 2.5 good years, and then he was just nothing because he wasn't playing at the UAE. UAE, he was the best bowler in UAE between 2015 and 18 or something like that. But since then, Yasir Shah, nope. And Danish Kanaria, very, very good. But I don't think I'm going to have 2 leg spinners on the side. Personally, I wouldn't go with 2 leg spinners. I would go 1 leggy and 1 off break. And if I was going with an off break, I could only think of 2 bowlers. I could think of Saeed Ajmal and Saqlain Mushtaq. But if you look at both of these guys' stats, Saeed Ajmal probably surpasses Saqlain Mushtaq in terms of the way he bamboozled batsman, okay? Even after everyone knew what the Dusra was, even after all that, Saeed Ajmal was able to trick batsmen, get them out consistently, whether you play in the UAE, whether you play in the UK, whether you play anywhere else in the world. Saeed Ajmal was really, really good. But the biggest problem was his action, because his action was altered multiple occasions. And on top of that, his Dusra, yes, it was almost unplayable, but I got to go with the guy who basically invented the Dusra, which is Saqlain Mushtaq. And here we have the stats for both of these guys. And they're very similar. And in every instance, you might say, oh, Saeed Ajmal is a little better, right, in terms of the numbers. But you have to realize who Saeed Ajmal was bowling at, and potentially who Saqlain Mushtaq was bowling at. The quality of players they both played against possibly were a bit different, or a bit more different than you'd expect, which is why I would go towards Saqlain Mushtaq. But I understand why someone might not, right? A lot of people might say Abdul Qadir, obviously, but maybe Pakistan goes in with 4 pacers, and then you have Abdul Qadir, or Pakistan goes with, like I said, Canaria or Saeed Ajmal, and that would be fine too. But in my opinion, I think Saqlain Mushtaq for me would be the guy who comes in and bowls his genuine off spin for like 25 overs in a day, maybe even 30 overs in the day, and then tricks the batsman by using his freaking variations. Not just pace, not just bounce, but a top spinner, an arm ball, a Dusra, and a genuine off break. And another, like he tried to invent a Tisra or something like that, which I don't think worked very well. I think Saeed Ajmal tried something similar as well. Didn't work very well, unfortunately. But overall, Pakistan had some very good spinners, but it's hard to pick an off spinner in the side. And you could go further back and try and think of someone else, and who I generally can't. But I would go with Saqlain Mushtaq just because of the quality of opposition he faced at the time that he played. And surprise, surprise, Saqlain Mushtaq didn't play Test cricket for that long. Neither did Saeed Ajmal, right? But yeah, definitely they'd be in the conversation. And yeah, it's there's a long time coming. I had to think long and hard after releasing my Test 11 video. Oh, why did I do that? Because it was on a whim that I changed my team entirely, right? And I think I made the right choice. So if you don't know the test team, the link should be up here of the video with the Test 11, but I'm going to tell you anyway, right? So Saeed Anwar, Hanif Mohammed, Yunus Khan, Javed Miadad, Mohammad Yusuf, Imran Khan, Rashid Latif, Wasim Akram, Saqlain Mushtaq, Waqar Yunus, and Abdul Qadir. And also Saqlain Mushtaq can bat, right? Saqlain Mushtaq was a pretty good batsman. The other spinners, not so much. But you can't really use that. You can't really depend on number 9 to bat, right? In a test, even in a test match. But just thought I'd make that point. Anyways, thank you everyone for watching. Please give me your thoughts in the comments below. This is a very long video. Sorry about this. I hope you liked the video. Until